J5LOVER, your #1 Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson fan. And today I wanted to do a follow-up actually on my most popular video on my channel, talking about the Jackson 5 versus the Osmonds. But before we get into that, let's talk about this day in Jackson 5 history. Well, this day in Jackson 5 history, January 31st, 1971, the Jackson 5 go back to Gary, Indiana. After 2 years of not being there and living in California, the Jackson 5 do 2 concerts at Westside High School for Mayor Hatcher, as well as they're presented with the key to the city of Gary, Indiana by Mayor Hatcher. Also, they have a plaque dedicated to them at the University of Indiana. And there's also a sign that's put in their yard at a ceremony in the house at Gary, Indiana, that was made by the Keepers of the Dream that say, "Welcome home, Jackson 5." And the street that their house is on, Jackson Street, is called Jackson 5 Boulevard that week. The Jacksons had so much love coming from Gary. And Gary is such a little town, and I think they were just really the first big group to make it out of Gary. And you could just tell that people were so proud of them. Okay, now let's get into it. The Jackson 5 versus the Osmonds. This is really a follow-up to my most popular video. It's really long awaited and long past due. First off, I want to say that I actually love the Osmonds. I'm a huge fan. I've been a fan since I was about 12 years old or so. I have like a ton of Osmond collectibles. I have like every episode of their variety show on DVD. I have every episode of Marie Osmond's TV show, Maybe This Time. Actually, I wanted to show you some of my Osmond collectibles. For instance, I have this tour book of the Osmonds from the early 70s in concert. I have an Osmonds radio from the late 70s. I have this VHS tape that I used to watch, this movie with Donnie and Marie called Going Coconuts. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you should actually watch it. I'm sure it's probably available here on YouTube. If it is, I will put a link to this in my description box. I have the Donnie and Marie Osmond dolls, which I absolutely love because I'm a huge doll collector. I even have the Donnie Osmond doll out of the box and still in the box. Love it. I got Marie Osmond, the doll station, where you can like play with her hair, do the hair. You know, some of us growing up remember having Barbies kind of like this as well. Barbie doll heads, very popular. I have some of their albums. I love the Osmonds once again. One Bad Apple is on this album. Got the record box with Marie Osmond's signature on it. So I'm a huge Osmond fan. I feel like some of the commentary that I got in my last video, some people were thinking I knew nothing about the Osmonds, I didn't like them, X, Y, and Z, whatever. But the truth is, I love the Osmonds and I love the Jackson 5. I am, granted, a huger Jackson 5 fan, but I think there's several reasons to that. The music resonated more with me than the Osmond music, but I still love the Osmond music, and their music does resonate with me. I watched I also, growing up in the 90s, watched the Donnie and Marie talk show. I follow them on Instagram and Facebook. I love the Osmonds. So for any haters or people who are trying to say that I just had something against the Osmonds or didn't like the Osmonds, you're completely wrong. Love the Osmonds. But a point that I was trying to make is, for instance, the Jackson 5 were the first Black family in the entertainment business to make it huge, as big as they did. And the fact that Donnie and Michael had so many comparisons. The Jacksons and the Osmond families have so many comparisons. Actually, Donnie Osmond himself said the same thing. Listen to this.
Is that both families are so similar. There's 9 children in both families. Michael and I are both the 7th child of 9.
Oh, really? Both, wow.
Jermaine was the middleman of the Jackson 5. Merrill was the middleman of the Osmonds, and we both sang lead. Our mother's birthdays are on the same day.
Wow.
Catherine played clarinet. My mom played sax. I mean, it just goes on and on. And Mike and I would just talk and laugh about it all the time.
Exactly. And there are so many more. And one actually really interesting one that I did not mention in my last video was that Ben was actually originally supposed to be sang by Donny Osmond, but the Osmonds were on tour at the time, so the song was given to Michael Jackson. Just like One Bad Apple was originally supposed to be for the Jackson 5, but Berry Gordy turned the song down and the song was offered to the Osmonds. And something that I noticed was in the beginning, the Osmonds had like sort of a barber quartet sound. They were on the Andy Williams show. They appealed to families, but mostly grown-ups and adults. And when the Jackson 5 became big, they appealed to teenagers. They started that sort of bubblegum pop phase, that bubblegum pop sound. And it was clearly evident when the Osmonds sang One Bad Apple that they were following in that same path and that same vibe, that same sound as the Jackson 5 to appeal to teenage girls and teenage kids, to get a new fan base, because they didn't have that big of a fan base with teenagers before that. And so, there were a few songs that the Osmonds did. Even Yo-Yo, to me, sounds a lot like a Jackson 5 song. But yes, granted, over time, the Osmonds broke out of that sound and kind of developed their own 70s sound. And of course, in the 1980s, Donny totally went in a different direction than Michael. In fact, Donny Osmond's career died in the 80s until Soldier of Love came out, and that was like his big hit. And Donny, unfortunately, and the Osmonds in general, had a reputation of being goody-goody and just overly wholesome and corny. And so that was like the butt of a lot of jokes back in the day. Donny Osmond decided not to put his name on the song Soldier of Love. It got a lot of airplay and people liked him because he is a talented singer and entertainer. So is the rest of the Osmond family. But I will say Michael and Donny both were the most talented of their families, which is why they stand out the most. And of course, Janet Jackson and Marie Osmond were the most talented of the women in their family, and well, were the most talented girls in their family. Of course, Marie Osmond's the only girl in the Osmond family. And the Jacksons and the Osmonds were constantly compared to in the 70s. And actually, let me read this excerpt from Tito Jackson himself about how he felt in comparison with the Osmonds. Tito Jackson says, in the Jackson's Legacy book, I thought One Bad Apple was a ripoff of us. The Osmonds had been singing with Andy Williams doing country music and barbershop type songs. But they were a good group. They were a solid band. They were our first rivals, and after them came the DeFrancos. We were friends with the Osmonds. We played sports together and had a lot of fun. Donny has always been a cool guy, and so have his brothers. So clearly they were friends, they got along, but they were musical rivals. And it was healthy. There was nothing horrible about the rivalry, but it was there. And of course, so many other groups copied the Jackson 5 style or sound or setup of 5 family members. That would be including groups like the DeFranco family and the Partridge family, the Brady Bunch, the Ponderosa Twins +1, the Ripples and Waves, which I actually will talk about the Ripples and Waves in the future because they were also a group from Gary, Indiana around the same time period. Brotherly Love, the Silvers, which a lot of people hate to hear the Silvers being compared to the Jackson 5, but they clearly sound similar. Also groups like Brighter Side of Darkness, who sang Love Jones. He clearly, the front lead singer, sounds just like Little Michael. And the Finger Five from Japan, which I talked about also in one of my former videos. And in the 80s, you had groups like Menudo, who were a group of brothers. And there's always, the front is always the youngest brother. And you also had New Edition, who was like the 80s answer to the Jackson 5. So clearly the Jackson 5 had a huge influence on a lot of different groups. And the interesting thing about the Jackson 5's music is it's still played on the airwaves today. I hear it more than I would ever hear Osmond songs. I mean, I'd have to go searching for the Osmond songs, or I think someone made me aware that there was a Sirius station of the Osmonds. I'd have to go hunting for that. But I don't have to go hunting for the Jackson 5 songs. I hear the Jackson 5 songs in grocery stores, elevators, on the radio randomly, at the mall. I mean, their music is everywhere. And not only is their music everywhere, their music's been sampled like 1 trillion times. So to me, clearly, the Jackson 5, even with the struggles they had and being the first black family of entertainment that made it as big as they did, they still were able to, in sales and in hits and in popularity, outdo the Osmonds, but that does not take away the fact that the Osmonds are also a very talented family. And the Osmonds are still working today, as we know, especially Donnie and Marie Osmond. They have not stopped doing what they do because they love what they do. Both families love what they do because the Jackson brothers are also still touring, as well as Janet Jackson. So there's just so many comparisons. They're so similar. It's so scary how similar these families are. And they both have a lot of talent. So there was no diss to the Osmonds or anything like that. But I personally prefer the Jackson 5. And I think there's a lot of evidence out there that the Jackson 5's music has carried on into bigger and more popularity. And some people only want to say that that rides on Michael Jackson's talent, which I totally disagree. I think the Jackson 5 was a group. Two of the brothers played instruments, and Michael was the front and lead, and people loved Michael. But it's no different than the Osmonds, where some of the brothers played instruments, and Donnie Osmond was the lead, and he was the biggest star of that group too. But people still love them all, and they all contribute to the group. But anyways, of course, ultimately it's your decision as to who's your favorite group. But I think a lot of people would say that the Jackson 5 were the best. But like I said, many people also think the Osmonds are. The choice is yours. Either way, please be respectful of everyone's choice and decision and opinion, and don't bash people. And if I see any bashing like in my comment section, your comment is going to get blocked and or deleted. Because I had to do that in my last video, and I just thought that was super disrespectful. There were some people that just gave their personal opinion and were respectful, and I really appreciated that, and some of their opinions didn't agree with mine. I just did not agree when people made personal attacks. I do not appreciate that, and it will not be tolerated here. This is a positive forum about music, and specifically about the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson's music. So please keep it clean, people. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments section. Please hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you know when my next and latest video comes out. And also follow me here on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.